When you talk about cars which are underappreciated or forgotten or just not talked about that often in general, supercar concepts tend to be a hot button topic within that category, for obvious reasons. Supercars are among the favourites of many petrolheads, myself included, and when you see an awesome concept supercar or hypercar, especially those seen in the 90s and earlier 2000s, which didn't make it to production, well, that's a tragedy for petrolheads the world over. Because there are some amazing supercar concepts which never made it to the road. You've got the Cadillac Cian, the Chrysler ME412, the Peugeot 907, even the Peugeot Oxia as far back as the 1980s. These are incredible performance cars which sometimes even achieved incredible speeds, but were just still never given the chance to shine. This is kind of that occasion in terms of the specific car, but thankfully for this vehicle, the technology used in it did live on in a very significant way, and I'm sure those of you guys who are aware of this car know exactly what I mean. Because this car, the Bentley Hunaudieres, named after the most famous straight probably of any racetrack in the world, the Le Mans Straight, now of course with the chicanes. Back in the day it was a huge top speed section, which incidentally leads after a hairpin into the Mulsanne Straight, also another Bentley model, is an incredible concept supercar. Now this car has some very striking visual similarities to a certain, well, very significant supercar, let's put it that way. And it's not just the visuals which are similar. You're probably thinking of the car which it looks like, and you're not wrong, because this car is powered by an 8-litre W16 Volkswagen-built engine. Because yes, indeed, the Bentley Hunaudieres preceded the Bugatti Veyron. This car was produced in 1999 as a single concept prototype, if you will. The engine, though, doesn't produce anywhere near the numbers of a Veyron. It was a much lower tune, essentially the same basic idea, but it had about 620, 625-ish horsepower, and about 550, 560 pound-feet of torque. It did have all-wheel drive, which of course is a staple of Bentley these days, and as you'd expect from a Bentley, and again this was also carried over to the Veyron, it's a very luxurious, opulent car. It doesn't try to be a lightweight track day special, but at the same time it has tremendous quoted straight line speed. The 0 to 60 you can assume is around 3.4, 3.5-ish seconds, especially with all-wheel drive helping it, and the top speed is quoted as being around 220 miles per hour, which isn't too surprising, given that of course it has so much less power than the Veyron, but at the same time it has very similar levels of aerodynamic efficiency, given how similar it looks to what would become the Veyron, and it's not the only car to share ties with what would become the Veyron a couple of years later. The Audi Study Rosemeyer concept also had similarities to it, along with Bugatti's own Chiron concept. Not the Chiron from now. This one was a much older version of the Chiron with no connections to the modern car, but it actually had a very interesting engine that went beyond these and had 18 cylinders. Pretty crazy engine. That, of course, didn't come to fruition, but this one did, very much so, and it went on to power the fastest car in the world. So this Bentley, although nowhere near that fast, could have been an incredible supercar for the Bentley brand. Now, Bentley made it very clear that this was not intended to be a production car really at any point. It was more of a test bed to get people talking about the Bentley brand and also to allow Volkswagen to develop that engine more before they finally released it into the Veyron. So this car kind of served as a really expensive, really, I would say, stunning looking test bed for another car, the Veyron. And ultimately, that's kind of a noble thing for the Bentley. It wasn't a pointless gesture. It didn't just fizzle out like a Cadillac CN or a Cadillac 16 or a Chrysler ME412, which that was a tragic car. It was forced to stop production because Mercedes asked Chrysler to produce the SLR instead, and they believe the ME412 would have overshadowed that car. So those tragedies do happen in supercar concept land, and this is one which kind of redeemed itself to some degree, which is pretty cool. This Bentley is a very rare car in terms of how often it's talked about. Online, it has a reasonable following. People don't tend to talk about loving it that much, but it's certainly an eye-catching vehicle, up there with the Maybach Accelero and a number of others which we've mentioned already. And it's certainly a supercar concept which deserves to be talked about. It's an incredible machine in terms of performance, certainly the tech behind it, and also the level of finish which the car has. Although it wasn't intended to be a production car, I love the fact that Bentley went so far with making it look like it was ready to roll out straight onto the street. With the fully working, fully fitted, really, interior, great performance, and just a level of finish quality which you would want from a Bentley. That was very cool to see, I think. And incidentally, I was actually very surprised to find out, very happily surprised in fact, that this particular Bentley has actually been featured in a racing game. As far as I'm aware, only one racing game, the game TOCA Touring Cars. It was an unlockable special vehicle. So that's pretty awesome. I didn't think this had ever been featured in a game, but it actually has. That's quite cool, I think, especially one which I used to play as a kid but never unlocked the car. I didn't even know it was in the game. Overall then, certainly an amazing vehicle, and it's kind of been revisited by its spiritual successor, if you will, the EXP10 Speed 6, which is kind of Bentley's return to the ultra-exotic category way beyond the Continental. But overall, certainly an interesting supercar, which proved to be a lot more important than many other supercar concepts in the long run. But that's it overall for this particular pick, and of course, if you want to check out more in this series, you can click through to see the full list at the end of this video. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.